Hello, everyone. My name is Manny, and I'm here with Inero, head coach of Golden Guardians. Inero, how are you doing? How's the off season treating you?
Pretty good, man. I'm getting my like 1 week break right now, like one and a half week break. I just got back in LA, so things are good. Not too bad.
That's good to hear. Obviously, catching you in an interesting time because playoffs are going on, but Golden Guardians wasn't able to make it playoffs. How is that
Mhm.
for you? Like, how is that? People might not really realize what you do, especially coaches, I guess, what they do between
Mhm.
splits. But what's that looking for you?
Uh, yeah. So in between splits, when you don't have playoffs, a lot of it is kind of dead time. You're using a lot of it to just prep for the next split. Obviously, still like watching the games and everything, seeing how those are going, and seeing things that we can pull from it, but a lot of it is kind of dead time. We're actually going to be coming back to practice a good bit earlier. We're coming back on April 11th to do like full LCS team practice.
Yeah.
And LCS doesn't start back till like June 4th. So we're
So you
coming
got
back
some
pretty
time.
early.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for then. But it sucks to miss playoffs. It's the first time I've missed it since I joined the LCS in 2017. So
Right.
sucks. It happens.
So I guess with that we can kind of get into reviewing the split, like you said, this is like your
Yeah.
first time missing it, but like how would you review the split? Kind of like what were your expectations going in and
Mhm.
how has that panned out for you?
The split overall was still disappointing for me, at least. I'm always going to hold high expectations from like myself and what I can like pull out of people. So the fact that we're like, dead last and didn't have very many wins is a disappointment for me. But overall, I think like internally, from what the org was expecting, it went about as expected for what we were doing. But still, I think there's a lot of things that I could have done differently. The split. Just to kind of like pull things together better.
Right.
Um, and the fact that I failed on those, disappointing from my side, but overall, it is what it is. Just got to take those changes that I'm aware of that I can do stuff differently on and push it for summer because practice was good through the year. That's the main thing that kept me optimistic about it was there was always a constant level of improvement in practice, and we're always doing like relatively well through all of it. And it just wasn't translating to stage, and there's a lot of different ways to attack that type of problem when it comes to like nerves. So a lot of it's just focused on adapting on that and making those changes where we need to.
Right. Obviously a lot of people predicted the good old meme of, when in doubt, predict Golden Guardians in 10th. Um,
Yeah.
and that happened this year too. And, a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, well, this is what we expected. But to me, it was actually kind of very different of a story. I've had the chance to speak to Ablaze Olive before, even Niles. And it seemed like the mentality, even going into lock in, was pretty optimistic within the org, right? At least within the
Yeah.
players. And so the team kind of surprised, right? Like you had some
Mhm.
very close games with TSM in particular. Obviously right after that, I think it was like the second time that you guys had a
Yeah.
close game through at Baron, and it was like, they can't keep getting away with this. But hey, at least we hit our goals. Like, how's that mentality? You don't have to tell us the goals, obviously, but like, how
Mhm.
was that being for you guys, right? Like, you were close to hitting these goals that you had set for yourself while still
Yeah.
competing against TSM, who's now looking like probably third best team in NA.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy for like the players and everyone to stay like optimistic and have like higher expectations for themselves when they feel progress
Mhm.
from themselves, like in practice, and they see like results kind of showing in practice. It's easy to kind of get that defeatist mentality of like, yeah, we're kind of fucked when you're losing like everything. But for us, like I said, practice was going great for us, and we did have like internal goals of things we wanted everyone to hit on, and in practice, we were always hitting those. It was just when it came to stage, like we just kind of rolled over a lot of the time. Like we didn't
Okay.
come in anywhere close to that same level of confidence for the decisions we want to make. So we're making decisions just really late, which leads to us making just completely incorrect decisions at the time based off of what's happening in the game. And it's hard for people to necessarily break through that, but I think that would usually tear a team down when that leaks into practice.
Okay.
And you come into practice and you start also playing like more scared there.
Yeah.
But you know, thankfully, like that wasn't happening. Like our guys remained very, very optimistic. So we kept being able to like push forward on those different goals that we had, and just progressing them forward each week, focusing on like a different topic, pushing forward on that. So everyone remained like pretty positive. Like team environment was great, like all the way through the end.
Right.
And it wasn't because like everyone was okay with losing. It was because like, all right, look, like we know we're not this shit. Like we know we're not a 3-win fucking team. And we just got to like make these fucking changes and be hard on ourselves. Like, I think when it came towards the last week, a big part of like what I'm talking about, where I wanted to change how I approached, because I think I approached it wrong and I was disappointed in myself. It's because I tried to come in and give like as little stress as possible in practice for the guys. Like just take it easy. Like, look, I want you to just feel comfortable to go out and like fuck up, like go in and fail. It's okay. Like I'm not going to fire you because you failed. Like you hit these objectives and you lose the game. Like cool, whatever, man. Like you did it. You tried. You know.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that would kind of like pull out that comfort from everyone. But looking back, and especially what I started doing more towards the end, was I need to actually create that stressful environment internally. Like I need
that urgency.
Like the players need to feel the same level of stress when it comes to stage. It's not new to them. It doesn't like freak them out. Like, oh shit, this game actually matters. Like, fuck, there's 100,000 people watching me. Like, fuck, I'm gonna lose. So I'm gonna approach with that a bit more. We did that in our last week of practice and catered drafts like very, very heavily towards where our strengths were as a team, and I think that'll push towards more success for the next split.
Nice. I mean, I think it is difficult, right? I mean, the reasoning so many people thought, oh yeah, Golden Guardians is a 10th place team, is because you have two guys from Collegiate, Niles and Iconic, right? You have Blaze Olive coming from Academy, has not had that stage experience. You do have Stixay, but he came from like CLG, and a lot of people were like, CLG. We still kind of saw CLG not really doing much, right? And then I think Newbie, I don't think people realize that Newbie is not a rookie and he's not relatively new.
He was our other veteran.
Yeah, he's been playing for a long time, right? Just in Latin America. But I think I want to take this a little bit more to like what has been the hardest part about kind of uniting them, right, as a team, kind of grabbing all these different elements. Like, is it the same as every year for you, or did this result in new challenges?
No, I don't think it's something that it was difficult to kind of get everyone together. It's more so just it's a lot of teaching. A lot of this is obviously like when guys are coming from collegiate rather than academy and not having years of experience. You have a lot of stuff you have to catch them up on, on like the very basics of the game, like just like bare fundamentals of stuff like wave management and shit like that. And catching up people on that it's going to take some time, and it takes a little while to do. At least to like break old habits, to break like bad habits. You can teach someone and they'll like understand like, oh yeah, this makes sense, I should do this. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be fixed like immediately. It takes some time, because when you get stressed, you devolve back to the habits that are there. Yeah. So trying to break that has been, you have to find a different way for each person. It's always a different approach for each person. So that's been difficult, but that's just like a part of the job. That's what's kind of fun about it. It's always like a little bit of a puzzle to find what hits for each person differently.
Right. And I think you saying that is the perfect example. For example, was accomplished last year with FBI, right? In particular, I know you guys had a great group of guys that ended up, going to the 100 Thieves side, but it was still, I think, I don't think it was underestimated after the 2 TSM series you guys had, but after that, like after a series like that, after like last year's playoffs, like how do you feel as a coach, kind of like, damn, we were actually that close to knocking out TSM, who ended up winning, right? Like we're that close. Like, did you guys really feel like you could have been that third best team in North America, or like one of the top 3 that did go to Worlds, or did it feel like any different?
It still felt hard. I'm not gonna lie and say like we felt like we were gonna be the world team. And our plan going into that year wasn't even necessarily to be a worlds team. We just wanted to be competitive and then build on that for next year, because that was still like a building block year for us with Closer and FBI. But like if we could get over TSM, it was possible, but C9 would have been the real hurdle for us. Our team did awful generally versus C9 in scrims. Like I think we ended up coming out about it that we won like one scrim game total versus C9 that whole split. So that would have been tough. I don't know if I could say we were going to be like the best team, but we had like the building blocks for it, I think, to kind of build on what things we did have successfully kind of worked on as a team to take into the next year.
Right, and that makes sense. And I kind of want to shift now towards a little conversation that has been going on social media, obviously around Oceanic Players, OS players. And it's like, for example, Ryoma, you mentioned the whole thing about, 100 Thieves drama was that this core group of guys were okay with the change, right? It wasn't like they wanted. And I think you've been one of the big advocates of Oceanic Players to come over. You were part of Tainted Minds back in 2017, I want to say. And stuff like that. Like, what attracted you towards this talent, right? Kind of like this like field of probably like, just people, diamonds just chilling there in Australia. Like what was it that drove you to like be like, wow, these guys are actually really good?
So it wasn't like an Australian specific thing. I just wanted when I like brought Lost was the first person I helped bring over. I brought over him and Tally for a boot camp with Echo Fox. I just wanted to give an opportunity to people who weren't necessarily getting it. Imports were just like fully restricted to looking at China, Korea, Europe. And like I worked there for a little while. I wasn't there for very long with Tainted Minds because of everything that happened with that org. Could still like watch. Could still like watch players and tell like, okay, this guy's like actually good. Like he's not smart about the game because he doesn't have the ability to like really learn those things very well from his practice environment. And just kind of needs to be able to learn that. Like he needs to work. It's just someone who's like capped at their region. Like they can't get any better with where they're at in their region. They need to be able to move somewhere else and like go. And these guys obviously like went to Korea too, and they would play and they got like high elo in Korea. It's like they have the ability to play the game well enough. They just need the opportunity to like learn and grow more about how to actually play the game and how to actually punish different things on the map and not just how to click well and how to move well, Right. So it was really just about getting that and trying to help find opportunities for those guys. It's not a case of like, I don't want to like open up to, all right, we should just bring in like a whole bunch of OS players. Like the whole region's just filled with these like diamonds in the rough, but there's definitely good players that I thought really deserved an opportunity instead of just importing, another person that you could just find from Korea because like someone recommended them to you,
Yeah, exactly.
It's just good to give other people a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, look, obviously you won't want to take the credit necessarily, but we have a lot of OS players now, especially with the rule change. Obviously, that them not
the rule
counting.
Change pulled it. I think
it definitely helped a lot. But like you mentioned, Lost, right? I mean, FBI. You've worked with FBI for a year and more, I think. And
a year and a half.
Yeah. So, what do you think about people not really giving some of these OS players a chance? I know at the beginning of the year, a lot of people were like, "Oh, Lost," no pun intended. It's like, "Oh, he looks lost. Like, why is he here?" Right? Like, why? And then now with Ryoma, like, what are your thoughts on people maybe not giving these players a chance, right? Or it doesn't have to specifically be OS players, right? But like any new players, what are your thoughts on that?
Obviously, like there can obviously be arguments for people like not performing well, and that's why you don't want to give them really a chance. Which I think a lot of people like really target on Ryoma for that because he didn't perform very well his first split, so they don't really want to give him another chance. Like the community's not going to want that, and it's kind of understandable when that type of thing happens. But for just the whole idea of giving new people chances, obviously the community wants it. If those players are good, like they want to see like really good new players pop up. But for a lot of orgs, I feel like it's a risk averse thing. The org's not necessarily going to want to do it because they want to focus on winning now. A lot of orgs are pretty heavily focused on winning now. Even this year, like going the development route for teams, a lot of it's just because of funding based. Like I know like us and FlyQuest kind of got headshot by NBA funding getting pulled.
Yeah.
And I know like both sides are pretty public about that. But then you go into like other splits and like teams don't really want to do it. They usually do it out of necessity because like either the coach doesn't want to do it because, hey, like I might get fired if my team does bad, you know, I don't want to risk that. Or the org doesn't want to do it because like, hey, we've got to attract some like sponsors and get like some attention on our team or some shit like that, you know. Like I don't know necessarily what the orgs want like money wise, because I'm not involved in that, but it's always like a battle between those two things where it's really hard for people to align of like, yeah, let's take a risk on this, like let's just do it. Like for me, I could have left Golden Guardians this split when the rest of the team left, but like I chose to stick around through this because I knew the org was going to go through like a developmental period, and overall, like I was happy working with them. So I was in like a fortunate position where like I don't really care if I get fired because the team does poorly. The expectation like internally was like, yeah, we're probably not going to do so hot this year, like no matter what roster we're building, because we don't have the funding for it. And it just kind of opens the opportunity to like test shit, test people out. I don't think a lot of teams or coaches or orgs really get that opportunity where they can kind of know like their expectations low this split and you can try it out.
Right. It's like imagine being the head coach of Cloud9 and you bring in perks worth a reported 9 million and then you're bottoming out. You probably would be like, all right, bye, right? You don't really have like much. But to go like alongside that, how does it feel bringing in? I know you kind of touched on the collegiate side of it, right? Like they have to learn a lot about the fundamentals, like especially in pro play, right? What about you have one of the two Latin American players in the league now? Like how has that been bringing in kind of like a veteran to try to help with the team?
Yeah, it's always going to be interesting working with someone who's been around the game for a good long time, just to kind of learn how they think about things and try to adapt that in the best way possible to your team. And also, whenever anyone's coming from a minor region, they're going to have a lot of bad habits just naturally learned, and trying to help break that down, like teach him. It's always a cool experience. Like it's always fun to work with because you can feel that person's learning a lot. And overall, Newbie has been like he's a very kind person. He's a very nice guy. Very nice to work with. He's pretty open about his mistakes and trying to get better on it. So it's been nice. He's a very, very nice person.
Yeah, I mean that's good to hear. Especially, it seems like the team environment has always been good, which I think from the outside it might not seem like that, or it might not be like, oh, are they all like just at each other's throats, right? Because it's like, oh, we're losing. But it's good to hear that it's not. So I kind of want to jump to what are your goals? Maybe your specific goals. I know you as an org might not be expecting to be competing for summer split, like championship or anything, but what are your kind of like goals or plans for the summer split? I know we still have some time, but obviously it's something that's on your mind.
For me, like always, a step goal of things is going to be just making playoffs. Obviously, summer's only like top 8, so it's not necessarily the highest goal. I think that's like a bare minimum thing we should always be looking to improve on. But the biggest goal for me is just going to be seeing a change in how we approach punishing other teams. That was our biggest flaw. Just hesitation, just lack of urgency in the decisions we would make. And just being very, very certain with what we want to do. It'll be likely pretty hard for people in the community to necessarily see that outside of when it's occurring at, like a dragon fight or something, like very, very like clear where like, oh, this team just immediately went, like they pulled the trigger. But I'm hoping to see that improve. Like that's something where putting a pretty hard standard on everyone of this has to improve. Like at a certain point, like it's not acceptable in pro play to wait for other people and purely be reactive on your decisions, unless you're like if your decision is to react in a situation, that's different. But
yeah.
to just like constantly be on the back foot of like, whoa, like I don't know if this is good. Like I don't know if we should do this.
Right. Like
More
constantly just
decisive.
waiting to see their mistake instead of maybe
Yeah.
forcing a mistake or,
Yeah.
having a tough decision.
At least like if other teams make mistakes, I want us to immediately like pull the trigger and go. I want us to know the decision we want to do and just like try it. And if it's wrong, like learn from it. If I can see that internally, that's like the biggest goal for me, making sure that's happening, and everything else should fall in place around that.
Right. I mean, I think that's pretty solid. And like you mentioned, it's 8th place. I think it's kind of weird. I think the league is kind of like in a weird spot, right? Where it's like the bottom half teams can really kind of like take a lot of games from each other, especially if you like start taking like one from CLG or like you go 2-0 against CLG in summer and stuff. Like you can really start making that like progress to potentially finish like in the top 8. And then best of 5s are best of 5s, and who knows, right? We can always see upsets, and Golden Guardians is not a stranger to causing some upsets as well. So I kind of maybe wanna touch up on this Gwen was just announced, and we don't have to necessarily talk about Gwen because we don't really know much about her, but
Yeah.
I want to kind of mention more because, for example, we haven't seen Viego, right? And I've heard that some players have been practicing Viego, kind of like ready for the moment to Viego to be allowed in pro play. What are your thoughts on new champions and how they affect pro play? Like, are you for it? Are you like, oh, this is just a mess? Or
I mean, new champions, like having new champions is great. The concept of having new champions is great. Like I like anything that's adding just extra like newness to league, just keeping things fresh. But new champions have been just so fucked, man. Like Viego, I don't know when that champion's going to see pro play, unfortunately. Like for me, like I've had like 2 games in solo queue where he's just crashed the game for like my team, and just everyone just ends up out of the game because he took over like the wrong person. It's just disappointing to see. It's just loaded with bugs, or it's just like they're overloaded kits.
right?
Usually, I don't know. Rel got introduced. Like I like Rel. I was abusing the hell out of Rel in solo queue.
Yeah.
But she kind of just hasn't stopped existing in pro play since she came out. Which I'm sure Riot wants. They're probably happy with that, but
right.
It always just feels like the new champion comes out and everyone is like forced to play. Like, oh, this is now pick or ban. Like this champion will find its way into being picked early or banned early almost every time. And obviously everything depends on numbers with something like Gwen coming out.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at her W or whatever that field is that just completely stops abilities.
Yeah.
She's got a passive of the same passive everything's on, like 3 hit something. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's something
like
with that.
Each hit is I think AP on hit. Like upping on her like health or something. I think they really want her to be a fighter. I also just feel like Riot says, oh yeah, this champion, he's a jungler. And it's like, oh no, Viego's actually just a mid laner, a top laner. You can flex it. It's like, you really.
It feels like it never comes out how they want it to be. Whatever role they say it's going to be, it's like, yeah, okay,
that's
man.
the one that's not good. Like Seraphine. Sure, I mean, Seraphine gets played mid, obviously, and it is viable. It's not like, but.
No, I remember Seraphine came out, and I was like, I think this champion could be pretty good with like a fucking melee bot laner. Similar to like the Sona TK stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you couldn't do support item, but I was like, I think this could actually be pretty good because I remember we talked about it in our like tryouts that we did in like October or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like fuck, man. These champions never come out and get played in the role that they want them to. Rel did at least. Rel did.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I don't think Rel could function another role because if she W's in, like she walks like 2 miles per hour. She's not going anywhere, dude.
I did think about maybe seeing Rel top. I didn't play it, but I saw someone else play it in the solo queue game, and I was like, all right, that theory, dead. There's no way.
Someone was on some sauce for sure with that one.
I was like, all right, never mind. No,
but it's always fun, though. Like, when new champions come out, like, I personally enjoy it, because I like that, like, exploration phase of just figuring out, like, what's really, like, OP on this champion. Like, what's really good? What's something new I can abuse with this now? It's always a fun game to play. So
Something I
it sucks
saw.
for pro.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say because pro, especially like we see certain champions that it's like, oh, they keep getting nerfed, kind of like the Rise effect, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah,
keep nerfing it, but he's just so dominant pro, and it's like, all right, just gut him completely, and then we don't see him forever, and then they have to rework
yeah,
him again or something, or even Azir. With Gwen, one of the things that I saw, again, theory crafting here, is that the first time she tries to leave her mist, it follows her. So if she
mhm,
does become a jungler, which is kind of my working theory at the moment, if you have a Thresh that lanterns her, she can just W and reposition that like initial W. Again, depending on how like it all works, but if you
yeah.
don't, if they have like a hard engage or something, you can always reposition it, which I think is pretty crazy. I do mention that as well because I did see your tweet of NASA's Q is just an auto attack that hits
It hits you
harder.
a little harder. Yeah,
So I kind of want to end this like little interview with kind of like your social media bangers. I feel like not just you, I feel like a lot of the Golden Guardians guys just have like great posts. I think a Blaze Olive comes to mind, Niles comes to mind.
yeah. Those
Uh,
two tweets.
what like for you, like what started, for example, the good morning like TikTok tweets? Like what? How did
Uh,
that come to be?
Nothing really. I just was like, I really liked TikTok, and I enjoyed the like good vibe TikToks.
Yeah,
And I think Twitter, like, there's something going on during that time, and it's like really negative, and I was just tired of seeing like just negative shit all over Twitter. So just wanted to post some like positive stuff. I was like, good morning, good night. Like I didn't want to use Twitter really,
yeah.
so I would just like post that and then like not look at it and then post like good night.
Yeah.
But there's nothing really to it.
There's
It's
that's just
just
how it
bored. It's
started.
like fuck it, dude. Whatever. But it was
That
nice.
yeah,
Just good
no,
vibes.
dude, I don't think I have so many of those saved, just because I was
Yeah,
like, wait, this is so funny. So it's good to hear. I mean, again, even if it's just sharing the good vibes. Obviously, quarantine life has been very difficult for a lot of people, and I know in
yeah,
LA it's been pretty rough as well.
yeah.
But hopefully, sooner rather than later. But thank you so much, Inero. I'll let you go now. But is there anything else you would like to say to fans of Golden Guardians that might be watching this, or people that are watching this throughout?
First of all, thank you, man, for the interview.
Yeah,
Really
of course.
appreciate it. Haven't really gotten a lot this year, so it's pretty nice. But yeah, thanks to fans. I know it's a limited pool of guys. Lost a lot of them to 100 Thieves following our old boys, which is understandable. It happens, but just appreciate people who stuck around. I know it's been a rough split, but summer will be better. I'm definitely going to do everything in my power to make sure that's the case. So yeah, just appreciate it, guys.
All right, thank you so much. Again, guys, everything LCS, everything league related, please tune in to ESTNN for more content like this. I'll see you next time. All right, man. Awesome. Thank you so much.